The King of Rock and Roll, Elvis Presley. Why is he known by that moniker? He didn't invent rock and roll. There is no single inventor of rock and roll. Rock and roll was at first a mix of blues, country, and gospel music. There were other pioneers of rock and roll music. Among them were Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Little Richard, Bo Diddley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Buddy Holly. Hi, I'm Henry Mateus. Welcome to my YouTube channel at Stick Dog Hank. Today's video is all about Elvis Presley. Basically, Elvis Presley was the first extremely commercially successful rock star. In another video, I'll talk more about the pioneers of rock and roll music. This video is not about who invented rock and roll, nor is it about the first rock and roll song or record. This video is about Elvis Presley's musical career. I'm not going to get into every little last detail about his personal life. There are very many. Elvis Presley was born in Tupelo, Mississippi on January 8th, 1935. Not Tennessee, which is a common misconception. He was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. His family relocated to Memphis, Tennessee when he was 13 years old. He was born Elvis Aaron Presley, and he had a twin brother who died at birth. His name was Jesse Garon Presley. His parents were Vernon and Gladys. Elvis's initial musical inspiration came from the gospel music while attending church with his parents. He loved singing. His first public performance was at age 10, a singing contest at the Mississippi Alabama Fair and Dairy Show on October 3rd, 1945. He sang Old Shep and placed 5th in the contest. On his birthday in January 1946, he was gifted his first guitar. In 1947, he began singing and playing his guitar at school. He was often teased as the strange hillbilly kid. In November 1948, the family moved to Memphis, Tennessee. In 1952, his junior year in high school, he grew sideburns and styled his hair. He would frequent Beale Street and admire the flashy clothes at Lansky Brothers, a very hip clothing store. By his senior year, he was wearing Lansky Brothers clothing. Elvis got very popular his senior year, 1953, after he sang in a talent show known as Hume's Annual Minstrel Show. He frequented record stores that had jukeboxes and listening booths. He loved country music and gospel, and he was a regular audience member at the monthly all-night singings downtown, where white gospel groups would perform black spiritual songs. Elvis listened to regional radio stations that played what were then called race records, spirituals, blues, and the modern backbeat heavy rhythm and blues. Elvis and B.B. King knew each other before they were huge successes from hanging out on Beale Street. In August 1953, Elvis checked into Memphis Recording Service. He paid for studio time to record a two-sided single for his mom's birthday present, My Happiness and That's When Your Heartache Begins. In January 1954, Elvis cut a second record at Sun Records, I'll Never Stand in Your Way, and It Wouldn't Be the Same Without You. Nothing really came out of either record. Now I'd like to clarify something about Elvis Presley. A lot of people say he was a truck driver when he went into those studios to become a singer. He never drove a big semi-truck. It's not like he was a trucker. He wasn't a truck driver. He was driving a pickup truck for an electrical company. He was thinking about becoming an electrician, so that was a job that was offered to him. He would deliver electrical supplies to different job sites for Crown Electric Company. Now, the big moment came when Sam Phillips heard Elvis's voice. Sam Phillips was the owner of Sun Records. Phillips was hoping to find a white singer that could deliver a deep, soulful sound like many of the black vocalists of that time. When he heard Elvis sing, he thought he had found his man. Phillips invited Elvis to the studio to sing some songs that had been previously recorded by other singers. Phillips definitely liked what he heard. Phillips then invited two very accomplished local musicians to the studio to work with Elvis on a recording session. Guitarist Winfield Scotty Moore and upright bass player Bill Black. It wasn't going very well as far as finding a unique sound as the night dragged on, but by the time it got late and the musicians were about to call it quits and go home, Elvis launched into a blues number from 1946, Arthur Crudup's That's All Right, also known as That's All Right Mama. Elvis just started singing the song, jumping around acting goofy, and then Bill and Scotty grabbed their instruments and started jamming and acting goofy with Elvis. Phillips pressed the record button. This was the sound he had been looking for.
Well, that's all right, Mama. That's all right for you.
3 days later, Dewey Phillips, a Memphis disc jockey, played That's All Right on his Red Hot and Blue radio show and interviewed Elvis live on air. A couple of days later, Elvis, Scotty, and Bill recorded Blue Moon of Kentucky by Bill Monroe, and Phillips pressed a 45 RPM single with That's All Right as the A-side and Blue Moon of Kentucky as the B-side.
I say Blue Moon of Kentucky to keep on shining.
The trio played in public for the first time at the Bon Air Club on July 17, 1954. Later in the month, they performed at the Overton Park Shell in Memphis, Tennessee, with Slim Whitman headlining. This is where Elvis introduced his rubber legs dance move that made the young women in the audience scream. During the instrumental parts, Elvis would back off from the microphone, strumming his guitar and shaking his legs and body, and the audience would just go wild. Soon after that gig, a local DJ promoter, Bob Neal, became the trio's manager. For the next 3 months, Elvis, Scotty, and Bill played lots of local shows in Memphis and got very popular. In November 1954, Presley performed on Louisiana Hayride. The show was broadcast to 198 radio stations in 28 states. Elvis was a hit. Louisiana Hayride signed Elvis for an entire year's worth of Saturday night performances. The trio began playing lots of new places, including Houston, Texas, and Texarkana, Arkansas. Presley made his first TV appearance on the KSLA TV broadcast of Louisiana Hayride. By early 1955, Elvis Presley was a regional star. In January 1955, Neal signed Elvis to a management contract and introduced him to Colonel Tom Parker, who at the time was the best promoter in the music business. Parker booked Elvis on Hank Snow's February tour. By August 1955, Sun Records had released 10 songs credited to Elvis Presley, Scotty, and Bill. The blend of Elvis' style made it difficult for his music to get radio airplay. Many country music DJs would not play Elvis records because it sounded too much like a black artist, and none of the R&B stations would play his music because they said he sounded too much like a hillbilly. The blend of styles came to be known as rockabilly. Elvis was billed as the Hillbilly Cat, the Memphis Flash, and the King of Western Bop. In August 1955, Elvis renewed his contract with manager Bob Neal and appointed Colonel Parker as his special advisor. Elvis continued to tour extensively, and the trio added drummer DJ Fontana as a full-time member, and they became a quartet. The girls went crazy for Elvis, and many of the guys hated him, obviously out of jealousy. Elvis had it all: talent, good looks, personality, stage presence, cool hair, groovy clothes, shiny shoes, money, sense of humor, female fans that adored him, and he was even good to his mother. How do you top that? On September 30th, 1955, there was a really huge tragedy in America. Movie star and teen idol James Dean died in a car crash. The youth of America now needed a new hero that offered teenage rebellion and validation of their emotional youth identity politics. Elvis Presley would be the new teen idol. At the Country Disc Jockey Convention in November 1955, Elvis was voted the year's most promising male artist. Parker and Phillips made a deal with RCA Victor on November 21st to acquire Presley's Sun Records contract for $40,000, which would be worth over $470,000 in today's money. Elvis was only 20 years old and legally still a minor, so his father Vernon signed the contract. By December, RCA had begun promoting Elvis heavily, and before the start of the new year had reissued many of his Sun recordings. On January 10, 1956, Elvis made his first recordings for RCA Victor in Nashville, Tennessee, with Moore, Black, and Fontana. Pianist Floyd Kramer was added to the studio session, as well as 3 background singers and guitarist Chet Atkins. They recorded Heartbreak Hotel, which was released on January 27, 1956.
I'll be so lonely I could die.
Parker booked Elvis on national TV on CBS's stage show for 6 appearances over the next 2 months. His first appearance was January 28th. The program was produced in New York City, so Elvis stayed in New York to record 8 more songs at RCA Victor's New York studio, including Blue Suede Shoes, written by Carl Perkins.
Well, you can do anything but stay over my blue suede shoes.
Neil's contract was terminated, and Parker became Elvis's manager. RCA released Elvis's debut album on March 23rd, titled Elvis Presley. It contained 5 previously unreleased Sun recordings and 7 new tracks recorded at RCA. Guitar took the place of piano as the lead instrument. It became the first rock and roll album to top the Billboard chart, and it held the number 1 position for 10 weeks. On April 3rd, Elvis made the first of 2 appearances on The Milton Berle Show. By the end of April, Heartbreak Hotel became Elvis Presley's first number 1 hit. Also in late April, Elvis began a 2-week residency at the New Frontier Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. While in Vegas, Colonel Parker got Elvis signed to a 7-year contract with Paramount Pictures. Elvis's live and TV performances were under attack by the conservative press, such as New York Times and New York Daily News. I'm not going to glorify the nerds that were attacking Elvis, so I will not mention their names, as they do not deserve to be remembered. They labeled him as Elvis the Pelvis because of his swinging hip movements while performing. On July 1st, Elvis appeared on The Steve Allen Show. Allen didn't like Elvis's music or popularity, so he had Elvis tame down his performance immensely. It was probably the most ridiculous performance of Elvis's career. Shame on Steve Allen for being so square and trying to embarrass the king of rock and roll. Allen's show had beaten the Ed Sullivan Show in the ratings for the first time ever because of the appearance by Elvis Presley. So Ed Sullivan booked Elvis for 3 appearances for $50,000. The first, on September 9, 1956, was seen by about 60 million viewers. That's 82.6% of the TV audience, a new record at that time. Legend has it that the Sullivan Show only shot Elvis from the waist up. That's not true. They zoomed in and cut to different camera angles when Elvis would gyrate his hips. Apparently, Elvis's dancing style was inappropriate for Sunday night family TV. The Ed Sullivan Show made Elvis a national celebrity. Elvis had now brought rock and roll to the mainstream culture. Fans were going crazy at Elvis concerts, and National Guardsmen had to accompany police in many instances. Elvis appeared again on The Ed Sullivan Show on October 28th. His first motion picture, Love Me Tender, was released on November 21st. Critics didn't like it, but it did very well at the box office. That year ended with a front-page story in the Wall Street Journal reporting that Elvis Presley merchandise had brought in $22 million on top of his record sales. Billboard declared that Elvis had placed more songs in the top 100 than any other artist since records were first charted. In his first full year at RCA Victor, Presley was responsible for over 50% of the label's singles sales. Elvis made his third and final appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show on January 6, 1957. This time he was shot from the waist up. At the end of the show, Sullivan said Presley is a real decent fine boy. 2 days later, the Memphis Draft Board announced that Elvis would be drafted sometime that year. 3 Elvis singles were released in the first half of 1957, and they all went to number 1. Too Much, All Shook Up, and Teddy Bear. Presley bought an 18-room mansion, Graceland, on March 19, 1957, in Memphis, Tennessee. Before his purchase of Graceland, Elvis recorded Loving You, the soundtrack to his second film, which was released in July. It was his third straight number one album. The title track was written by Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller, who would soon develop a close working relationship with Elvis and wrote several more hits for him, including the title song for his next movie, Jailhouse Rock. That song also became another number one hit.
Everybody in old Santa Claus was dancing to the Jailhouse Rock.
On December 20th, 1957, Elvis received his draft notice. He was granted a deferment so he could finish the movie he was working on, King Creole. As the new year got underway, Elvis scored his 10th number one single called Don't.
Don't.
On March 24th, 1958, Elvis was drafted into the U.S. Army at Fort Chaffee in Arkansas. It was a major media event. Elvis stated that he did not want to be treated any differently from anyone else. During his 2 weeks leave in early June, he recorded 5 songs in Nashville. In early August, his mother Gladys was diagnosed with hepatitis. Elvis was granted emergency leave to visit her, and he arrived in Memphis on August 12th. 2 days later, she died of heart failure at age 46. Elvis was devastated and never the same. He had been extremely close to his mother his entire life. On October 1st, 1958, Presley was assigned to military duty at Ray Barracks, West Germany. Sometime around mid-1959, Elvis was introduced to amphetamines and spoke highly of their benefits for energy, strength, and weight loss. He also began studying karate with Jorgen Seidel, and he became quite an expert. While in the German town of Bad Nauheim, he met Priscilla Boyu. They married after a 7.5-year courtship. Elvis came home to the United States on March 20th, 1960, and was honorably discharged on March 23rd. Between March 20th and April 10th, Elvis recorded new tracks at RCA's Nashville studio. Stuck on You, which became a number one hit, and It's Now or Never, and Are You Lonesome Tonight, and the rest of the songs for his album, Elvis is Back. On May 12th, Elvis was a guest on the Frank Sinatra Timex TV special, the only time all year that Elvis performed in front of an audience. Colonel Parker secured $125,000 for 8 minutes of singing. At this point, Elvis went off to Hollywood to star in 31 motion pictures. I'm not going to go into detail about his films. I like most of them. He was definitely a good actor. Some are great and some are not so great. But you have to admit, whenever you see Elvis on screen, he looks like a star. His movies produced soundtrack albums, and these albums did well on the charts until 1964, probably for several reasons. Some of his movies were corny, and some of the songs he had to sing in these movies were written by composers that had no clue about rock and roll. And oh yeah, the Beatles showed up in America and dominated the charts, followed by the Monkees in 1966. Elvis had only one top 10 hit between 1964 and 1968, a gospel song, Crying in the Chapel.
You saw me crying in the chapel.
Elvis won his first Grammy for the gospel album, How Great Thou Art, in 1967. Just before Christmas 1966, Elvis proposed to Priscilla. They were married on May 1st, 1967, at the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. The Aladdin Hotel is now Planet Hollywood. Here is a list of Elvis Presley movies in order of their release. Love Me Tender, Loving You, Jailhouse Rock, King Creole, G.I. Blues, Flaming Star, Wild in the Country, Blue Hawaii, Follow That Dream, Kid Galahad, Girls, 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 It Happened at the World's Fair, Fun in Acapulco, Kissin' Cousins, Viva Las Vegas, Roustabout, Girl Happy, Tickle Me, Harem Scarum, Frankie and Johnny, Paradise Hawaiian Style, Spin Out, Easy Come, Easy Go, Double Trouble, Clam Bake, Stay Away Joe, Speedway, Live a Little, Love a Little, Charo, The Trouble with Girls, Change of Habit. Number 32 is a documentary, and so is number 33. Elvis, That's the Way It Is, and Elvis on Tour. On February 1st, 1968, Elvis's only child was born. Elvis and Priscilla named her Lisa Marie. In late June 1968, Elvis recorded his TV special, Elvis. It would later be known as the 68 Comeback Special. It was filmed in Burbank, California, and aired on NBC on December 3rd, 1968. Colonel Parker had planned on the TV special to be a Christmas holiday-themed show with lots of Christmas songs. Elvis and the show's director, Steve Binder, worked hard to produce an edgy rock and roll special instead. This is well documented in the 2022 film Elvis, starring Austin Butler as Elvis Presley and Tom Hanks as Colonel Tom Parker. I watched the film and liked it very much. Butler delivered an incredible performance. Needless to say, Elvis's 68 Comeback Special was a huge success. It was NBC's highest rated show that season, capturing 42% of the total viewing audience. Elvis said after watching the show in the screening room, "It's the greatest thing I've ever done in my life." Feeling great and enthusiastic about his successful comeback, Elvis did a series of recording sessions at American Sound Studio in Memphis, Tennessee, which led to the release of his 9th studio album, From Elvis in Memphis, released on June 2nd, 1969. This album features the hit single, In the Ghetto, which reached number 3 on the pop chart.
Poor little baby child is born in the ghetto.
Other hit songs recorded during the sessions at American Sound are Suspicious Minds, Don't Cry Daddy, and Kentucky Rain. On July 31st, 1969, Elvis began a 4-week, 57-show residency at the brand new International Hotel, which is now the Westgate Las Vegas Resort and Casino. The audience of 2,200 people gave him a standing ovation before he even sang a single note, and another standing ovation after his performance. The next day, Colonel Parker negotiated with the hotel and got Elvis a contract for 5 years to perform each February and August for $1 million each year. In November 1969, his final non-concert film, Change of Habit, was released. The double album From Memphis to Vegas, From Vegas to Memphis was released the same month. The first LP was made up of live performances from the International Hotel shows, and the second of more songs from the American Sound sessions. Suspicious Minds reached the top of the charts, Presley's first U.S. pop number 1 in over 7 years, and his last.
We can't go on together with suspicious minds.
Elvis returned for his engagement at the International Hotel in early 1970 and also did many concerts all over the United States, including 6 attendance record-breaking shows at the Houston Astrodome. In April, the single The Wonder of You was released in the UK and it reached number 1.
The wonder of you.
Later in 1970, both an Elvis album and a documentary were released, both titled That's the Way It Is. Elvis continued touring until December. In 1971, Elvis became the first rock and roll singer to be awarded the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. It was then known as the Bing Crosby Award. 3 Elvis studio albums were released in 1971. Elvis on Tour was a documentary produced by MGM in April 1972, and it won the Golden Globe Award for Best Documentary Film that year. Elvis's gospel album, He Touched Me, was released in April, and it earned him his 2nd Grammy for Best Inspirational Performance. Elvis followed that with a 14-date tour, including 4 consecutive sold-out shows at Madison Square Garden in New York. The July 10th concert was recorded and released as Elvis, as recorded at Madison Square Garden, and it became one of his biggest selling albums. After the tour, the single Burning Love was released, and it would be Elvis Presley's last top 10 hit on the U.S. pop chart.
You light my morning sky, burning love.
Elvis and Priscilla separated on February 23, 1972. I think we all know that marriage can be very difficult, especially if one partner is on the road touring and hardly ever home. In January 1973, Elvis did 2 benefit concerts for the Kwili Cancer Fund in connection with the TV special Aloha from Hawaii, which would be the first concert by a solo artist to be aired worldwide. On January 14th, Aloha from Hawaii aired live via satellite to primetime audiences in Japan, South Korea, Thailand, the Philippines, Australia, and New Zealand, as well as U.S. servicemen based across Southeast Asia. It smashed viewing records in Japan, and the next night it was simulcast to 28 European countries. In February, the double album Aloha from Hawaii via satellite was released, and it went to number 1. It was Presley's last U.S. number 1 pop album during his lifetime. Elvis and Priscilla's divorce was finalized on October 9, 1973. The couple would remain close friends until his death. They even held hands while leaving the courtroom where they finalized their divorce. They did a very good job of co-parenting their daughter Lisa Marie, who was only 5.5 years old at the time of their divorce. By this time, Elvis was struggling with his health. Twice in 1973, he overdosed on barbiturates, spending 3 days in a coma in his hotel suite after the first incident. In late 1973, he was hospitalized due to the effects of a pethidine addiction. Pethidine was a prescribed, fully synthetic opioid pain medication. As we all know now, opioids are highly addictive and very deadly. In December 1973, Elvis did a recording session for RCA that produced 18 songs. By the end of 1973, Elvis had done 168 concerts, the most of his career ever in a single year. Even though he was struggling with his health, he took on another massive touring schedule for 1974. By the end of 1974, Elvis was overweight and drugged most of the time, stumbling and forgetting lyrics to some of his songs while performing live. He made no official studio recordings in 1974. RCA did release another live concert album on March 20th, 1974. Elvis recorded live on stage in Memphis. It included a version of How Great Thou Art that earned Elvis his 3rd and final Grammy Award for Best Inspirational Performance. During his career, Elvis was nominated for 14 Grammys, and the 3 that he won were for gospel recordings. Elvis returned to the recording studio in March 1975, but it wasn't very productive. In 1976, RCA sent a mobile recording unit to Graceland, but singing and recording had become a struggle for the king. Before I talk about his death, I will mention other people that were instrumental in Elvis's life and career. Of course, his mother Gladys, his father Vernon, who traveled with Elvis and his touring entourage, friends and bodyguards, known as the Memphis Mafia, Joe Esposito, Jerry Schilling, Red West, Sonny West, Marty Lacker, Billy Smith, Charlie Hodge, Richard Davis, Lamar Fike, Alan Fortas, and George Klein. Of course, Elvis's wife Priscilla and his daughter Lisa Marie. After his separation from Priscilla, Elvis had a couple of serious girlfriends, Linda Thompson and Ginger Alden. There is quite a list of women that Elvis was close with during his Hollywood movie filming years, but I really don't want to gossip or speculate. Many of them were very successful movie stars themselves and some of the most beautiful women in the world. What would you expect? This is Elvis Presley I'm talking about. He is the biggest star this world has ever known. That's a fact, not an opinion. If you must know who the women were, just Google search Elvis Presley girlfriends. Okay, now we'll talk about songwriters for Elvis. Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. They were a team. Aaron Schroeder, Mark James, Mort Schumann, Red West, Otis Blackwell, Wally Gold, Mac Davis, Doc Pomus, Billy Swan, and several others. To learn more, Google search Elvis Presley songwriters. Close childhood friends: Sam Bell, Guy Harris, James Farrar, Yvonne Farrar, later Mrs. Bobby Ritchie. Now the sad part. By early 1977, Elvis was very overweight and stoned because of all the prescription drugs that he was taking on a daily basis. He struggled to remember lyrics during his concerts and talked more than he sang. On March 31st, he canceled a show in Baton Rouge because he was unable to get out of his hotel bed. 4 shows had to be canceled and rescheduled. He did improve enough to do some concerts after that. A new single, Way Down, was released on June 6, 1977. It was his last during his lifetime. His last concert was held in Indianapolis at Market Square Arena on June 26, 1977. His last appearance in public was the morning of August 8, 1977, when he rented the entire Liberty Land amusement park in Memphis for himself and about 10 others. On August 16, 1977, Elvis was scheduled on an evening flight out of Memphis to Portland, Maine, to begin another tour. That afternoon, his fiancée, Ginger Alden, discovered him unresponsive on the bathroom floor of his Graceland mansion. Attempts to revive him failed. Elvis Presley was pronounced dead at Baptist Memorial Hospital at 3:30 p.m. The king was gone at age 42. United States President Jimmy Carter issued a statement that credited Elvis Presley with having permanently changed the face of American popular culture. Thousands of people gathered outside of Graceland to view the open casket. Elvis's funeral was held at Graceland on August 18, 1977. His official cause of death is very controversial and contains a long list of prescribed medications. Let's say that there were many factors that led to his death. Bad eating habits that made him obese. Bad sleeping habits. He got used to staying up all night and sleeping during the day, relying on pills to give him energy to function and also to help him sleep. Extensive wear and tear on his exhausted body from constant touring. It's the old cliche, burning the candle at both ends. Elvis left us at age 42, way too young. But the things he accomplished in 42 years are far beyond what most humans ever accomplish, even if they live to be 100 years old. Earlier in this video, I listed his movies. Here is a list of his albums and hit singles. Elvis Presley recorded around 750 songs in his lifetime. Some remain unreleased. He released during his lifetime 23 studio albums, 7 live albums, 12 compilation albums, 29 EPs, 18 soundtrack albums, and 24 box sets. He sold over 1 billion records worldwide before he died, and of course that number has increased substantially by now. He made 31 feature films plus 2 concert movies and 3 major network television specials. Here's a little bonus information that most Elvis fans already know. After wrapping up the filming process of making an Elvis movie, Elvis and his entourage would fly to Las Vegas, Nevada and party hard for several days, then fly back to Hollywood, California and begin filming the next Elvis movie. I have lived and partied in Hollywood, California, and I now live and party in Las Vegas, Nevada, but I can only imagine how much fun and chaos those Elvis parties were. Elvis fans also know that Elvis was a very generous man. He bought Cadillacs for his crew and for complete strangers sometimes. He bought houses for some folks. He paid off mortgages for some folks. He gave lots of money anonymously to charities and medical research organizations. He donated money to schools. I can go on and on about his generosity. Elvis was also a 7th degree black belt in karate. He also collected cars. He had over 200. Many are on display at the Elvis Presley Car Museum at Graceland in Memphis, Tennessee. He also owned at least a dozen Harley-Davidson motorcycles. He loved grilled peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwiches. Elvis's great-great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee woman named Morning White Dove. A genealogy study in 2019 concluded that Elvis had more American Indian heritage than any other ancestry. Elvis Presley touched the lives and influenced millions and millions of people. John Lennon of the Beatles stated, "If there hadn't been an Elvis, there wouldn't have been the Beatles." He also referred to Elvis as the firstest with the mostest. So just imagine if there had never been a Beatles. My very first original music video is all about Elvis Presley, and you can watch it for free right here on my YouTube channel at Stick Dog Hank. It is called King for a Day. In closing, Elvis did not invent rock and roll, nor was he the best guitarist or vocalist or songwriter, but he was the best entertainer of his time, and in my opinion, of all time. He was the first extremely commercial, hit song selling, merchandise selling, heartthrob, pop singing, hip shaking, handsome movie star, superstar that this world has ever known. For all those reasons, he is and always will be the king of rock and roll. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.
My